Hello and welcome to the Help Us Here podcast brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. A couple of weeks ago, we were on a group call and we had a client say, Tom, can you one day do like a podcast or something talking about how you and Mary like met and Mary's story? And I've noticed a lot of guys have been asking for this lately. So if you're like completely new to the podcast, this would be quite an interesting listen. If you've been here a while, probably even better in a way. For some people, you're just not going to care about us. So you might just want to skip the podcast and focus on the other ones. But yeah, let's get into it. I just think it'll be quite interesting to kind of talk a bit more about your story, how you learned this method, you know, how it changed your life, what you were doing before you met me. And then I can share a bit of my story and kind of from my end, how I ended up meeting you. And yeah, let's just get into it really. So yeah, Mary, take it away. How did all this begin? You know, we're now at like, I don't know, over 1,000 subscribers, and I think we've got like quite a lot of listeners on Spotify.
1,400.
Yeah, which is nice. So cheers for, you know, listening to us and stuff, guys.
With no short form content. I think that's important.
For real.
1,400 subscribers. I think if we use short form content would go against our morals, or go against our message, but we probably have a shit ton more subscribers. But I like our slow and steady wins the race mentality. Yeah.
Well, you know what my favorite animal is?
The turtle?
Yeah, the tortoise. Yeah, tortoise.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So my grandma's had a tortoise for like forever, and I like grew up with this tortoise called Fred a little bit. Absolute legend.
What do you call it? Tortoise?
Fred. Yeah.
You mean like a tortoise? Tortoise. I'm starting to pick up on your lingo. It's crazy.
Wait, are you saying what did we call the tortoise? Because I'm saying we called the tortoise Fred, or are you saying...
No, I'm talking about you're calling it a tortoise instead of a tortoise.
Tortoise? Is that what you call it?
Tortoise. Okay, so seriously, we gotta get this BCA going to the point we can have workshops in Hawaii, and I'm gonna take you to this place that there's like literally like it's a surf beach. It's called Ho'okipa, and there's these turtles hang out there, tortoises.
Now I'm questioning: is this a British accent, or is it just me?
And in the evening, they all come up onto the beach, right? And there's like 50 of them. They're huge, right?
Yeah.
And they have like the tortoise or the turtle keeper, the guy who sits there. He's got his little tent, you know, and he sits there and he keeps any tourists from going and messing with the turtles, right? Because he's like, you can check out the turtles, but you can't touch the turtles. You can't mess with the turtles. But then the other thing that's like super, super cool is these are huge waves. It's a surf beach, right? Huge waves. But the turtles, they surf in the waves, and you just see them, you know, coming in. Here's turtles just flying through the waves. It's the coolest thing ever.
That's awesome.
I'll take you there someday.
Yeah. So do they have the tortoises as well?
Yeah.
What you call
tortoises, turtles are the same thing.
No, they're not. Tortoise and turtles are different. Tortoises are like on land.
They're the same species but different variations.
Oh, I thought you actually thought for a second there they were like legit the same thing, like the actual just same thing completely.
I think I think what I'm referencing is sea turtles. I don't know. We'll have to look it up. But this is not the tortoise podcast. What are we even talking about? Okay, we're talking about slow and steady wins the race. And then our subscribers, yes, slow and steady wins the race. So, okay, so I got involved in this work. I was a smoker, right? Nicotine addict. And literally I started smoking when I was 14 and wanted to stop at the time I was 16.
Yeah.
I was 14. That's why my lungs are kind of a little fucked today.
I didn't know that. No way.
Yeah, I was 14.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then wanted to stop at the time I was 16. But I was full on, man. I was full on addicted for sure.
Wait, hold up, Mary. Hold up. I feel like you always skirt around like the background story. Like it's taken me like 2.5 years to start piecing like your whole evolution of BCA together, right? And like the backstory. Yeah. So let's just take it bit by bit. It can be a long podcast if it has to be. That's cool.
Yeah.
Talk to me about smoking at 14. Like, how's that come about?
I was at I was at the roll arena, the roller skating rink. It's called Roll Arena. It was, and my friend Sue, she pulls out these cigarettes. She says, "Oh, I got these from my brother." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And I remember, and we smoked one, and I remember I got so dizzy, I thought I was gonna puke. And I just was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then it was like, after that, I'm like, oh, can I have another one of those? It was like, I was like instant addicted. They say that when you're a kid like that, that it takes like 2 to 3 cigarettes to become addicted to nicotine. I
Wow.
mean, it's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, that's messed up.
So then from that point forward, started stealing them from my dad. My dad smoked at the time, another reason my lungs are probably a little compromised. But yeah, so full on from there on. And then wanted to stop at the time I was 16, never could do it. So then fast forward 14, 15 years of smoking,
Yeah.
you know, and trying to stop, trying to stop, trying to stop. I thought I'm going to be miserable smoking or miserable trying not to smoke. I really literally thought these are my realities. And then Patricia, my mentor,
Yeah.
she ran this ad in the local paper, and it was a dear smoker ad. And I told you about this. She would say, come to the class, dear smoker, you can learn to stop smoking and feel good about it while you're doing it. And I thought that's complete bullshit, because my proof was I'm just going to feel horrible if I'm trying not to smoke. So
Yeah.
I read her ad for like a couple of years in the Willamette Week newspaper. And
No.
then finally I called her up and I said, how much does your program cost? And she said, well, how much do you smoke each day? And I said, oh, about a pack a day. And she said, well, it sounds like you're spending a couple dollars a day to do yourself in anyway. Exactly what she said to me. Never gave me the price of the program. And back then, cigarettes were like $2 a pack. Now they're like $15 a pack, or whatever
Yeah.
crazy amount of money people pay for them, or vapes or pouches or whatever. But so I went into her class, and then I learned the method, and I was like, oh, okay, finally, something makes some sense. So
Yeah.
that's how I got started.
What had you tried before, like seeing that ad? Like, had you tried anything to try stop smoking, or were you kind of just like, oh, I'm just gonna do it? Like, it doesn't really
I
matter
would
that much.
just try cold turkey, willpower, and then I did hypnosis.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the hypnosis was just a joke. It
Yeah.
was just a complete joke. The guy was like, and I've talked to the guys about this in group, but I faked it. He was like, "Ugh," putting me under, right? And I'm laying on this table thinking, and I remember, can you see my eyes twitching? Because I'm not out, I'm not hypnotized, but I didn't want to tell him because I didn't want to insult him, because
Mm.
he's like, this is doctor, hypnosis doctor, right? Hyp-
Yeah.
Hypnotherapist, right? And so I didn't tell him, but I was totally conscious. And he was saying, um, you don't want to smoke. You don't want to smoke. And I'm like, yes, I do want to smoke. I want to get out of here right now and go
Yeah.
have a cigarette. And but then he would say, having me do visualization, where I would visualize a room full of people smoking. I can remember his exact words: gagging, hacking people in this smoky room, right? And then visualize over here, those are the field of daisies
Mm.
and the fresh air. And so like, ooh, and I'm like, okay, well, this is bullshit. So I just went on smoking for another 10. I did that when I was like 20. So I went on almost another 10 years of smoking.
Yeah.
I would just, and it was like literally this constant conflict, basic dilemma: want to do it, want to stop, want to do it, want to stop. And I just couldn't do it and then when I found it was Breathe Free Stop Smoking program. Um, then I got it. Then Patricia called me to have me come and sit in her class. She wanted to get people in the classroom because the TV station was coming in to do a little bit about her program, and
Yeah.
she wanted to plant people in the audience, and she picked me. So um, I went and did that, and then she called me
Well,
like,
Mary, just hold up a
yeah,
sec as well. So,
yeah,
Breathe Free Stop Smoking program. This was run by Patricia. Was it
yeah.
run by anyone else as well, or was it just
No,
Patricia?
just Patricia.
Okay, it was just Patricia, and
She,
she's running live classes in person. And was that in
yes.
Portland, Oregon?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so you'd
In the
moved
Galleria. In
right.
the Galleria, it's a kind of this cool, 5-story mall thing
Yeah.
downtown. And sorry, I met my ex-husband in the elevator.
Oh no way. Wow,
Yeah, yeah.
mad.
Pretty cool.
And
Anyways, yeah.
had she like been taught this method by someone else? Like, how did she come up with the
Yeah.
Beyond Compulsion Method or whatever it was
She
called
met
back then?
she okay, the script itself,
Yeah.
of course we've made tweaks to it, but the basic foundation of the script was designed by a guy named Joe. I have
Mm,
no idea his last name or anything like that, where Patricia learned to stop smoking from Joe down in California
yeah.
years before she came up here. And she told me that he'd walk into the room. She didn't have any money.
Yeah.
She still doesn't have any money. Anyway, she's never been good with money, but she didn't have any money, but she was so desperate to stop smoking that she offered to work for him. So that's how it all got started. She worked for him to pay off the program, right? But
Yeah.
so she said he would walk into the room, and the first thing he said, he would slam the door and say, "Let's get one thing straight. I'm not here to be your fucking friend." She said that's how he started every class. And she was like, whoa,
Yeah.
but she wasn't quite that severe, but I just remember her, how effective it was when people in the room are just spewing bullshit, and she was such a great teacher, and she would just get right in their face and go, "That's bullshit." And everyone would be like, "Whoa." So, but it was our success rate. I went to work for her after that because she called me and recruited me. But then the success rate was extremely high for nicotine addiction. It was like phenomenally high. It
Yeah.
was like consistently 75 to 80% in a group setting.
Mm,
So I had an even high. I have a higher success rate for nicotine addiction, but I've done individual work, so it's
yeah.
going to have a little
Yeah.
bit higher success. So yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's how I ended up there.
And you're still in touch with Patricia to this day. So she's like in her 80s, right? So she learned
Yeah,
it from someone called Joe, just a random
yeah,
guy called Joe who's been with
random
her
Joe.
for years, many, many years ago then. So presumably that was like, well, when did you, so you learned it over 30 years ago. So like late
Yeah,
80s.
yeah, probably
You know how,
35, getting closer to. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, it'll be. I think I learned it in 98, 97. So we're coming up on 40 years.
You mean 80s? 80.
87. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you learned it in
We're
like
coming up on
87.
I'm coming up on 40 years. Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of Patricia, then, like, do you know how long she'd been teaching the method for?
Probably, I don't know, under 10 years.
Under 10 years, right? I
Hmm.
wonder who this Joe guy is. Did you ever meet him?
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
So that's like 50 years ago. I don't
Hmm.
know how he came up with it, but
Yeah.
with some brilliant stuff right there.
Yeah.
So
Fair
if you could only know if he's still even alive, he's probably not alive.
No.
Patricia's 80 something.
Yeah.
If he know where what he created, where it's gone to now, with you and I,
Yeah.
evolution.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
And
yeah, that
how much do you think you've like iterated Patricia's work? Like, well, actually, first off, how did you end up like joining Patricia to like teach this method and like being a coach of it? Like, what happened there?
well, she needed an office manager.
Hmm.
And she called me and asked me if I was happy with my job. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I love my job." Ooh, and then I thought about it for a while. I called her back and I said, I really don't like my job that much. And
What was your
when,
job like then, though?
yeah, I was working for vocational rehabilitation specialists. And it was called Intracorp, I think. I don't know. It was just, I was an administrative assistant to the top dude.
Okay.
So
Fair.
I ended up just coming in as a administrative person, and then he recruited me. He said, "Hey, you want to be my assistant?" So it was
Yeah.
like a level up and more money and everything. So I was his assistant.
Yeah.
And then she called me out of the blue and was like, "Hey," she recruited me. So I was a hot commodity. So Yeah. And so then I went to work for her. Yep.
And what were you
And then
doing?
after that, I just ended up, I had met Steve in the elevator, ended up getting married. And then I had Zach.
Yeah,
And then I got into graphic design for a while. I was doing graphic design at home, which I really loved.
yeah.
And then somehow I got back into this work because I just believed in it so much, you know?
Mm. What work were you doing, like with Patricia? Like, were you helping running the classes as well?
I was the office manager.
Hmm. What did
Yep,
that like entail?
I would take phone calls. I
Uh,
did all the administrative work. I did graphic design. I started doing graphic design for her. I remember as it,
right.
they call them Fat Mac. I think it was that the computer screen was like this big, right? You know, it was like the whole computer was like this. And I did the newsletter. I did a lot of writing. I wrote articles. I helped with follow up too. You know, when they needed help with follow up, I scheduled classes. I contacted hospitals. We were teaching in 18 different hospitals at one point.
Mm,
We were up in Seattle. We were in the Vancouver area, all around. We were teaching in all these hospitals. So there's a lot of admin work.
yeah.
But yeah, and then when I left, then I then I found out the possibilities of graphic design. I walked into this guy's office who was next door to these friends of mine, and it was like a spaceship, all of his computers and everything. It was super cool. And then I ended up working for him and freelance and taking care of Zach because he was a baby and all that jazz. So then I
Why
took a
do you
break.
think, Mary, why do you think the method didn't grow more though? If like it's in 18 hospitals at one point, presumably that's like maybe late 80s or 90s. So how's it not grown more from there? Is that, do you think, like what, you got any thoughts on that?
I think it was probably Patricia's limitations on being as a businesswoman.
Business, yeah.
She was a teacher, you know. She
Yeah,
was a teacher. She wasn't like the businesswoman. It's
yeah,
kind of like me and you know.
yeah,
It's like I was trying and trying and trying, and I just kept getting by teaching and kept doing and kept going. But then all the marketing, all the business stuff was just like, oh God, it's not my thing, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So
Because like before me, obviously you teach the method in Portland, like in person a lot, but you weren't really that active in terms of online marketing. Is that fair?
right, I kind of stopped, and then I made my videos.
Oh,
Because I was trying. I
yeah,
was trying to do the whole online thing. I'm like, well, I got to make videos. I got to make a course that I can put online and all that. So, but then I met you, thank God. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get to that though, so you were doing some like in-person work, right? How did it go from being like you, Patricia, and also was there anyone else, by the way? Like when it was you and Patricia, or was it just you two?
Nope. There was Vincent, who was the funniest human on the planet, the funniest teacher literally ever, but he's disappeared. We don't know what's happened to him.
Okay.
And then there was Emma and Lorraine, and there was a handful of follow up instructors that were on the phone like all day long, you
Yeah.
know, calling people up. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you end up like taking over the scene then of like teaching it? Was it just like everyone else like kind of dropped out teaching it, or what do you think happened there?
Well, first of all, Patricia sold the business to this guy who, without Patricia, it just wasn't what it could have been, and it just kind of tanked. And then because I couldn't really compete with her here. And then she moved to Florida because her sister got sick. And that's when I started teaching again.
Oh,
I had it, it was, I called it CEASE, CEASE. It was a stop smoking program. I don't remember my tagline, but it was called CEASE. And I did stop smoking for quite a long time.
yeah.
And then, I think Patricia came back. I don't remember all the details. I mean, we're talking, 40 years of, time. Um, and I couldn't really compete with her for nicotine addiction here in Portland. And that's when I started doing food compulsion.
Right.
And then I pretty much just wanted to shoot myself. I'm like, when Patricia, I said, I don't know why you ever got into that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, tough stuff, because with the whole wave of all of the, messed up stuff around, diet, fitness, all that healthy eating crap, that all just came in such a wave. And I'm over here going, wait, hold on a second. This is about food compulsion. And I'm like, talk about a tidal wave. Jesus, that was a huge tidal wave. And here I'm just like getting washed away. So, yeah, I just, yeah, did the food thing for a long time. And then realized to get the hell out of that, because I mean, specifically because I was like in the weight loss industry and it was just driving me crazy. So then I became Beyond Compulsion because I wanted to work with all other addictions,
Yeah.
you know, and opened the door for everything, but at that point I'd written Beyond Food Compulsion. So I had more of that going on, more food stuff going on, but I just wanted to work with everything because addiction's addiction. If you're going to
Yeah.
replace one addiction with another, you're still in an addiction,
Yeah.
So,
And when did you
yeah.
set up Beyond Compulsion, like roughly?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. Um, 20 years ago
Yeah. Okay.
ish, something like
And
that.
then in
Yeah.
that time, you're using the script and the education that Patricia had taught you, but just across a range of addictions at that point. So that's like food,
Correct.
drugs, gambling, relationship,
Yep.
sex, and just
Yep.
a
All of
whole
it.
thing, right? Yeah.
All of it. Yeah, anything. And because the thing is, and that's when I changed the script. When I became Beyond Compulsion, I rewrote the script to be all inclusive,
Mm.
wanting to engage in my compulsive behavior right now, right? To be all inclusive. So, and I rewrote my curriculum to be all inclusive, to work with any and all addictions. So,
Yeah.
because yeah, I remember at one point, I wrote Beyond Food Compulsion. And then I thought, well, I should write Beyond Gambling Compulsion. I should write Beyond, alcohol compulsion. Beyond, I'm just like, wait a minute, what am I going to do? I'm going to write 30 books without Beyond Screen Compulsion, Beyond Shopping Compulsion, Beyond,
Yeah.
all of it, Beyond Exercise Compulsion. And I had so many visions and big ideas, right? So I had this guy, David, who was an amazing illustrator. It's, I don't have my book right here, but it's the illustration on the cover of my book, Beyond Food Compulsion. He had done illustrations for me for drugs, gaming, um, alcohol, I mean, all of it. All these really cool illustrations. I paid him like $600 an illustration. He's really good. But I thought, okay, then I'm going to make all these books with all these, illustrations on the cover. And yeah, I never got there because then I thought I need to write just Beyond Compulsion. And now we're going to do it. The fundamentals,
Oh, yeah. Please. Oh, yeah.
all these years later, it's actually going to happen because,
Yeah.
I feel like I have just a shit ton of ideas, but I feel like you're the person who can like put them into action. So
Hopefully. That's the plan. That's the plan.
that's
Yeah.
the plan.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's quite interesting. I guess, like, overall, from my perspective of understanding your work very well, what you kind of did then is you understood the addictive part of the mind for nicotine, so you could start to see and identify like the junkie thoughts, right? But then
Yeah.
you started to witness similar sort of thought patterns across other compulsions, which led to you realizing that actually it's all sort of interconnected. It's all like the
Yes.
psychological issue. It's all the same sort of parts of the mind. And then you could apply the same sort of model for basically any behavior that anyone wants to stop. Where did the unanswerable questions come in? At what point did they come in? Because I think this podcast really is probably going to be more interesting to like BCA members, and I feel like it's been requested by a lot of clients and past clients who've been in our program, and they'll know a lot more about unanswerable questions. We do have a few podcasts on unanswerable questions as well, but it's like quite
Yeah.
a big part of the whole Beyond Compulsion method. But yeah, where did those come in, and did they exist at all in like Patricia's time, or are they just like something you've created entirely yourself?
That's mine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought
because
so.
the
I thought so.
unanswerable questions came in with food compulsion.
Mm.
That's where, because the thing is, there's so much helplessness taught out there that you don't know what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, all the things. So all of that fed the helplessness thinking of, oh, I don't really know, right? I don't know what, what and when to eat, and then all the diets giving you all this advice. And that's when the unanswerable questions came in. And I mean, I can go into it very specifically too. I was trying my best to try to help people
Yeah. I love
answer
this
these
story, by the
unanswerable
way.
questions.
I
What's
love this.
that?
I love this story. Just to
Oh
interject
yeah.
quickly, I think
About
I've heard it a
the
few times.
bacon, lettuce, and pepper sandwich.
It
Is
might
that
be. It might be.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm trying like crazy to help these people answer these questions about whether or not what they had was reasonable or if it was compulsive, right? And then I start to see like, okay, here's what's happening because this woman comes in, she stopped eating compulsively, and that day she said, "Well, I got this bacon, lettuce, and roasted red pepper sandwich, which I thought great idea when tomatoes are out of season, right?" So and then she had the question she had was, "Am I enjoying this too much?" And I'm trying to answer this question, and I'm thinking, okay, wait, what the hell? Because what she did is she decided, yes, I'm enjoying this too much. So it's compulsive, right? So here comes the addictive part of the mind. Oh my God, you're being compulsive. You can't have this. She threw her sandwich in the trash and went back to work hungry. And that's when I really got it and saw how people are doing these unanswerable questions. The addictive part of the mind jumps in. You'd think the addictive part of the mind would go, "Oh no, go ahead. You're enjoying it. Have two, right? Go get some more or whatever." But it doesn't. It says, "Oh no, you're being unreasonable. You're being compulsive. You can't have that. You have to stop," right? So she throws her sandwich away. And so while they're trying to answer these unanswerable questions, the addictive part of the mind jumps in, and then there's the deprivation thinking, and then they're in the spin, and then all the hell breaks loose, and end of story, then comes fuck it. I remember I used to teach it. Deprivation, the spin, deprivation thinking, helplessness, fuck it. And that's what would happen every time because they're no longer focused on, okay, I'm having this compulsive desire. Now I have the script. Now I can think it through. And because they had to eat, right? They were faced with this on a regular basis, which is kind of like, it makes me think of like the guys, not that they have to date, but they want to date, they want to have sex, right? So that it's the same thing. The unanswerable questions come up with pornography addiction, just like with food stuff.
Mm.
So, and then of course it gets into all the helplessness, avoid triggers, put up blockers, all that crap.
Yeah.
So, that's where it happened. And I remember I was teaching in my garden house
Mm.
and I had the big whiteboard and I started asking them what kind of questions they would have, you know, when they're faced with eating, right? And the whole entire board was full. It's kind of like when you see my notes that I write on when I do follow up or do groups, the whole entire board. I'm writing all around the edges. Every little white space I could find is filling in with some question. And then like all the people are just sitting there like, oh my God. And I'm like, what's wrong, you guys? But at this point I'd figured out the ploy of the addictive part of the mind, right? So I'm like, what's wrong, you guys? And they're just like, oh my God, that's where I live. Because that was the spin, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I don't know if
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen it, Mary, but I feel like a few listeners will have done. But it reminds me of that meme where you've got like this maths equation and this guy's just looking at it like, what the hell? And it's just like the most complicated thing ever. And there's like all these different diagrams and it's like shooting off in all these different corners. It's just utter
Yeah.
chaos. It's like
Yeah.
that is where the addictive part of the mind wants people, is just in that complete confusion. And I imagine what you experience with the food in particular is
Yeah.
you're kind of just working that battle like David versus Goliath, where you're trying to teach a very, very simple method, but then there's just so much noise out there coming from
Yeah.
the diet industry on like, do this, don't do that, and it's just like,
External and internal.
yeah, both,
But
yeah,
then,
coming, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I remember too. Then I was like, okay, here's all these 7 million questions on the board. I said, okay, now this is really, really complicated, so just be ready, right? So I said, here's the response. And I erased everything on the board and wrote, I know, period. I just
Yeah.
stood there. It was like, that's it. You
Yeah.
know, period. And then of course follow up at the point was that point was not knowing's not the problem.
Mm.
Not knowing how to stop yourself when you know you're being unreasonable and compulsive. That's the problem. And now you have a tool for that. That was how I
Yeah.
taught it back then. We've
Yeah.
changed it up a bit, but
No,
that's the
exactly.
basic concept. Yeah.
But like the overall thing with that is just understanding that all those questions are designed specifically by the addictive part of the mind to try and get you to engage in your compulsive behavior. And you don't need to go and answer them. And it is such a relief to know you don't need to answer them. And like, this is what we hear from so many clients, that once they've just got their scripts and they understand the addictive part of the mind, they understand like some of the things we've just spoke about, then there's just that peace of mind of, okay, I know
Yeah.
what to do. I don't need to keep on trying to like question myself or worry about this or that, or what am I going to do in a week, or whether what I did 10 minutes ago is compulsive. It's just, okay, I know.
Yeah.
And it's just so much more simple. Um,
Oh, that
yeah.
reminds me. I had this one person who was like, came into follow up class, literally freaking out about something she ate like a week ago.
Mm.
Whether or not it was compulsive. I mean, it was just like, I literally, my head was spinning off my shoulders. It's been one of the toughest things. And then the evolution of the internet. Talk about feeding unanswerable questions. Good Lord, it's like nonstop conflicting information, tons of information in your face all the time, and in your face in a way with short form content that it is reinforcing addicted neural pathways at the same time that you're spinning out in helplessness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello? Like, what the fuck? You know?
Yeah. Fully
Yeah.
crazy. Now I'm going to ask
Yeah.
you a bit of a challenging question, but I think it's one that listeners would be interested in.
Sure.
And it's something that I thought about doing for myself as well many times. And, I could explain, if you like, why I haven't gone down that path. But with this method and, a very high success rate, did you ever think about going and getting more qualifications, let's say to get licensed as like a therapist or get a degree in something, in this field or something like that? Did that ever come up for you? Was that a consideration?
I thought about getting some letters behind my name or aligning myself with people with letters behind their name. But it just I remember Patricia told me, she said one of her she told one of the breathe free clients that she was going to go and get her get her degree, get her MSW or whatever she was going to get. And the client said, "No, don't do that. You'll ruin it." It's like, I remember Patricia telling me that, but it's like, yeah, I thought, I could put my energy toward that, but honestly, it sounds really vain or arrogant or whatever, but I knew that what I was doing was effective. And I could see absolutely so clearly how addiction treatment was going off the rails. And hello, what has manifested? A
Yeah.
complete and total addiction epidemic on every level. It's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. And I mean, it's like this huge homeless problem, which is all addiction. I mean, it's just literally everywhere. So I think maybe I was right.
Yeah.
Just saying.
No,
But yeah,
that's interesting to hear. Like, I've obviously had a few times since working with you where I've really, really considered going and getting a degree, maybe in
yeah,
something like neuroscience, or potentially at other times, something like counseling and, getting qualified as a therapist. And I've really thought about that. But I've got quite a few friends who have gone down that sort of path.
yeah,
I've got a mate who's got a degree in neuroscience. I've got a mate who's a qualified therapist. I've got other mates who are training to be therapists. And it's like, what I see with a lot of them is that they are thinking in the same ways that are very prevalent in society today. So a lot of questioning, a lot of trying to understand things, a lot of thinking into the past, and so much of it misaligns with what we teach. And I think it would be quite challenging actually to continue to do this work that we're doing whilst also learning something that conflicts with what we teach so drastically at the ideological level. And, it's not to say that I'm ruling out going and getting a degree for good. I might one day do that, because I think it would give us some more credentials, perhaps. even if
Yeah.
we don't use any of that. But at least from like a business perspective, it could be good. But yeah, I can definitely see why you didn't go down that route. And I do agree that, if we just continue with the status quo, then we're just going to continue, with things getting exponentially worse over time as they are in the
Yeah.
world of addiction right now.
And honestly, if it's important to you that if you're getting help with addiction, that someone is a PhD or has the other qualifications, go that route. Do that.
Yeah.
Definitely give it a shot. I mean, we've got so many of the guys that have gone that route and have not found success. So, and the other thing too, like I said, I've tried to align myself with different, professionals that are, have credentials and whatever. But they all are about evidence-based practices. That's their whole thing, and I've got all these boxes up in my loft, there's evidence, but I'm not going to dig through all that shit and make some spreadsheet and, whatever. I'm not, whatever. I'm not doing that. So because they have these evidence-based practices, they wouldn't really entertain, that I was trying to align with them or that I had something to offer. But what I've seen, with these evidence-based practices, is one of the things that they are really ignoring is the substitution, which we call detour to disaster, right? Where, okay, someone comes in with a drug problem, right? They're doing, heroin, fentanyl, opiates, whatever, any of the opiates. And then they stop that, but now they're 400 pounds, or now they're gambling addict, or whatever. They're not, okay, it's evidence. Okay, they stopped the opiates, but now they have another serious compulsive behavior. So, that's, to me, that's evidently there's still a problem. So,
Yeah. I think
yeah, that's kind of where I was coming from on it.
what's interesting about that is it's just how that, the problem that people have has become so misunderstood, because nowadays people often think their problem is to do with the specific behavior that they're engaging with. And yes, it is, obviously, to a large extent, right? So like, let's say you've got a food problem. Yes, part of the problem is that you're going to have some symptoms to do with maybe being overweight, let's say.
Yeah.
And then they have many symptoms. But then what people often miss is that, yeah, like the problem overall is starting in the mind. Like that's where
Yeah.
the problem is always going to start. Like it's impossible to eat an excessive amount of food without at least some point thinking, okay, I'm going to eat this food. Like you just is
Yeah.
like that's how actions take place. Like you think, then you do.
I want to eat this food. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it happens. And,
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people will go, oh, well, it's all in the subconscious or this or that, so you're not
Yeah.
aware of it. Okay. Well, if you want to believe that you don't have any control over your actions, then you're kind of screwed, right? Like, like if it's all just
Yeah.
happening automatically, what chance do you really have?
Well, and you also, one of the things that they're ignoring, like maybe in that moment, that person succeeds in stopping whatever a compulsive behavior was the most problematic for them, but how much, not treating that substitution behavior as well puts them at risk for relapse to the whatever, was the primary,
Yeah.
was the primary addiction that they were trying to overcome.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
for sure. Exactly. So it's not addressing the root of the problem. And then I think that's the other misconception, that the root of the problem is to do with why you started engaging in the compulsive behavior. So if we look at you, Mary, like what you could have done and what you probably would do in modern society now, if you'd, grown up in a different era, is you'd be like, okay, why did I start smoking those cigarettes at age 14? Like, what was the reason behind that? Was it to do with
Yeah.
this? Was it to do with that trauma? Was it, whatever? Rather than just going, okay, well, yeah, I started doing that at a young age. That wired my brain to want to do that because of
Yeah.
repetition and the mind mood altering experience. Okay, let's figure out how to stop doing that.
Right.
Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
not sure exactly where I was going with all of that. So let's just,
Yeah.
delve back into you and understanding, what happened next, right? So you've done the work with Patricia, and then you've done the food compulsion for a while. Then you open it up to everything. What do you think has led to this not getting out there to more people? Let's say before me, right? You were teaching this in person in Portland, Oregon, doing it quite a bit. I think you'd been on like one podcast prior to me. I was the second podcast you ever went on, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
why wasn't this getting out
Third,
to
I think.
more people? Do you think it was to do with like the lack of marketing, lack of business, lack of sort of the social media side of things? Like what was going on there?
Yeah. It was my aversion to all of the above,
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
and just
Yeah.
getting into the whole social media thing and trying to get attention online and all the algorithms and all the search engine optimization and all of that. That's just not my area of expertise in
Mm,
any way, shape, or form. It's just not, I mean, not only was I not good at it, I also was having an aversion to it. I was like, oh God, I don't like being in this, and so yeah, that's where I just thought, well, maybe I'll just try to get you know, my experience out there in the form of education on podcasts.
mm.
And that's when I met you,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I
So
went on with this one other podcast, and the guy was asking me a lot of questions that made me think that there was something else going on with him, compulsive,
right.
behavior. So it was interesting. And then I went on another one, which was a
Okay.
woman who was full on super focused on dieting and exercise, nutrition stuff. So yeah, I was like, and I just didn't want to be in that environment anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's when
No,
I ended up
fair enough.
meeting you, which was, like I say, it was a total blessing, obviously.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So like you weren't going on these podcasts looking for someone like myself to come along and be like, right, I want to kind of take this method and get out there to more people. It was more for you for Beyond Compulsion yourself at the time, as it was called back then as well, because obviously it's more like Beyond Compulsion Academy, we call it a lot of the time now. But back then
Yeah,
it's like, okay, maybe you go on these podcasts, get the word out there to more people, and then, maybe people can find you and work with you sort of one on one back then.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, you came on my podcast and I listened to you, and then afterwards, you were like the only person, and I've spoken about this a million times, but you were literally like the only person in my life up until that point to basically call me out on my bullshit and go, wait,
yeah,
you're still in an addiction. Because at the time,
yeah,
I sort of believed, I suppose, that like I was fine because I had got to a point where I was good at managing and controlling the addiction. Essentially, going on streaks and doing it less. But then you were like, well, you relapsed 2 weeks ago. Like, what's going on here? Like, do you want to help with this?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, like, what what was in your mind when you said to me, like, Tom, do you want some coaching? Were you just thinking maybe this is gonna help me out? Like, did you want to help me? Did you think maybe I'm gonna end up, collaborating with you? Like, what was going on there for you? I've never asked you this
I think
before.
both.
Yeah,
I wanted to help you, and I knew that I could help you, and also I always knew that I need somebody who can believe in what I'm doing and also has that expertise to actually get it out there to the masses.
yeah,
So it was kind of a win-win.
yeah.
So
Made sense.
yeah,
I was pretty just like blown away, I suppose. Like, obviously, at first, I had a lot of resistance to the method, but then when I started applying it, it did work. And it was just like, well, this is effective. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And then,
yeah,
eventually I ended up deleting all my old YouTube videos and podcasts and just did a full 180 on basically everything I'd been taught
yeah.
up until working with you, which was quite crazy. But I'm glad I chose that path, and
Me
it's worked.
too.
It's worked for us both, right? And a lot of people we've worked with, which is the most important thing, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's quite crazy, really, how we ended up meeting like that. And I think the other
yeah.
thing for me, just like in terms of my side of the story of meeting you, what I found mental at first, and maybe we did a podcast on this, I can't remember, but I just read a book called Shoe Dog by the founder of Nike, and he was talking a bit about
Nike.
what, yeah, Nike, or yeah,
Yeah.
Nike, if that's
I
how.
remember that. I remember when I met you, you were calling it Nike. So that was funny.
Yeah, so I just read that book,
Yeah.
and it was just really weird because I think he was from Portland in Oregon. And I was like,
Right.
okay, no, that's weird. And
And you had a
then,
Portland shirt.
and I had that, yeah. So like, I'd
Yeah.
literally gone to the shop like a week or two before
Yeah.
meeting you, and I'd bought a shirt on it that said Nike, and then it had Portland literally written on it. Like they were just the two words on the t-shirt
Yeah. The
because I read the
headquarters.
book,
Yeah.
and I thought it was cool. And then I met you, and you were from Portland, and I was just like, that's weird. Like that is just a weird
Yeah.
coincidence. I just bought
Yeah.
a t-shirt that says Portland on it, and then met someone like living in Portland. So it was just crazy. And not that that's
Mhm.
the reason that I chose to go and work with you and
Right.
change my whole entire life because of a t-shirt. That'd be a bit
It's so cosmic.
but, yeah, it is a bit. It is a bit. You know, I believe in God, so you know, I
Yeah,
won't
well,
get
two
into
and a
it.
half years later, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But in a nutshell, I suppose that's kind of our story. And the
Yeah.
only other thing from me, I guess, is that I was just another random no-fap YouTuber, like chatting
Yeah.
shit, thinking I
Yeah.
knew what to do when it came to like self-improvement and discipline and motivation. And, you know, I listened to all the self-improvement stuff and tried to stop watching porn myself, but nothing had worked. And then I ended up, yeah, like taking a punt on Mary, had some coaching and was like, right, this shit actually is very, very effective. Let's go for it. And yeah, the rest is history, I suppose. So it's
Here we
about it,
are.
really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
All right,
Good
cool. I
stuff.
think that's about it then for today's
Yeah.
origin story. Hopefully you've enjoyed the listen. Yeah, let's see. Let us know if you have. Thank you so much for listening. Any final words from yourself, Mary?
Nope, I'm good. Yep. I
All
got
right,
a
cool.
lot more Beyond Compulsion Academy work to do today. Yep. Lots coming up.
100%. 100%.
Yes, yeah.
Hopefully this is
Yeah.
only the very start, really.
Yeah.
This method
Yeah.
will help
Good
people
stuff.
and change people's
Thanks,
lives.
Tom. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much. Cheers for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.